Salve a tutti amici di Comics Reporter e Fumettomania. Oggi per la nostra intervista abbiamo un ospite illustre, famoso nel mondo dei comics. Si tratta dell'editor, scrittore, biografo e insegnante Danny Fingeroth. Welcome Danny.
Hello, nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Danny, puoi parlarci dei tuoi progetti presenti e futuri se non sono confidenziali?
They're kind of confidential. Right now, I'm working very hard on Will Eisner Week, and so there's a week devoted to him, the first week of March every year, which I help run for the Will and Ann Eisner Foundation and Will Eisner Studios. So, because of this crazy year with the worldwide pandemic, we're still asking people to do things locally if they can or on their own websites, but we're providing new material about Will Eisner and about graphic novels at the WillEisner.com website. So I'm very much involved with that, and we have people like Todd McFarlane and Jean Lewin Yang, and I'm blanking out some, of course. Dennis Kitchen and Jerry Kraft, the prize-winning author of New Kid and other graphic novels. So a lot of interesting people, Susan Kirtley, and all sorts of people doing very interesting stuff about Will Eisner, and that'll be available starting the first week in March, and there'll be news about it at the Will Eisner website. So that's one of the main things I'm involved with now. I have some other book projects that it's too early to talk about, but the Eisner thing, aside from, of course, from the Stan Lee book, is very large in my horizon.
Passiamo adesso alle domande dal pubblico. Dario Ianese ci chiede: si dice che chi sia stato editor alla Marvel non deve avere paura dell'inferno, perché non può essere peggio. Cosa pensi al riguardo?
No, I think the shock that maybe some people had is that it was like a real job, and that there were, my hair is doing funny stuff with my fake background. I'm in Doctor Strange's inner sanctum here. There we go. And I have my COVID hair, but this is even funnier. Um, no, we used to say at Marvel that it beat having a real job, so I don't know. Were there days that were hellish? Oh yeah, you bet. And things. I ultimately left there when things got kind of weird, but I worked there for close to 20 years, and yeah, any experience I've had with the world outside comics, I don't see it as any better. Yeah, Marvel could be a great place to work. It could be a terrible place to work. It all depended on what was going on a given day and how and what corporation happened to own us that week and so on. So there was no. I would disagree with that. And I think anybody who's worked in the so-called real world as well as comics would probably take issue as well.
Passiamo adesso al libro sulla biografia di Stan Lee. Mario Moschiera ci chiede: è stato pubblicato recentemente il libro A Marvelous Life: The Amazing Story of Stan Lee, pubblicato anche in Italia, edito dalla Panini. Mi sembra molto interessante di come è descritto Stan Lee come l'anima del bullpen e anche come vengono descritte le sue complessità come uomo d'affari. Che ricordi hai di Stan Lee con maggiore affetto?
Well, my earliest memory is being a kid, discovering the early Marvel comics on the newsstand in New York City. I'd been reading DC's comics, which I liked fine, and then suddenly this new thing, the Fantastic Four, came out, and it was really an approach to comics that was so much different. People, I guess maybe people take it for granted, but there was something about the Marvels that was, more realistic. I know that sounds kind of goofy to say about a superhero comic book, but the characters they were three-dimensional. They reacted the way a normal person might if they got superpowers. They were arguing with each other and regretting that they got their powers and feeling freakish and feeling alienated and wanting just to have a regular life, with a girlfriend or a boyfriend and a job and not have this responsibility. So it was, and a lot of that, of course, obviously was Jack Kirby, Steve Ditko, those artists who gave Marvel the look and feel. Part of it was that Marvel was printed at a cheaper printer, or at least at the same printer, but paying less. So that the coloring was always off register. It almost had a three-dimensional feel to it. It was just in your face in a way that the very kind of proper and beautifully drawn DC superheroes didn't. And then it had, so Kirby and Ditko gave the visual. They did a lot of the plotting, but it was Stan Lee's voice that really was the overriding definer of Marvel, with Ditko, with Kirby, with Martin Goodman, who was the owner and Stan's cousin, so that Stan had this odd position of being a writer, a freelancer, also an editor, also the art director, also related to the boss. So he became what you would call in film an auteur, even though he wasn't the artist and couldn't have done it without those guys, obviously, visually as well as in many ways with the stories and concepts. He brought it all together. He initiated the whole idea of an interrelated universe. He brought in the idea, or at least popular, expanded the idea that the comic was talking to you. It wasn't some piece of entertainment that had its distance. It screamed at you on the cover copy about how great it was. It narrated in the story captions and in the credits about how you were special just for reading that comic. There was this teeny tiny type in the letters pages and the bullpen bulletins that had all this sort of, it was talking to you like a friend, but not like a grown-up who was talking down to you, or a grown-up who was trying to pretend he was 10 years old, but like a grown-up who somehow understood why you love these comics and these characters. I mean, it was this thing, if you were the right age and of the right mindset, it was this perfect entertainment and community building thing.
Sei molto attivo nel campo dell'insegnamento, per un periodo hai insegnato anche in Italia. Qual è il rapporto con il nostro paese?
What is my relation with Italy? I've been there. How many times have I've been there? Many years ago, in the 70s, and then I was there about 10 years ago teaching at a place. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, called the Me Master Art Institute in Milan. I have a feeling I was there somewhere in between, but maybe not. I love Italy. I mean, what's not to love? I mean, it was very, I mean, I found it the people were great. The students were very talented, and they mostly spoke English, which was a relief. But I did have a translator. I had two translators, actually. And it was, I guess one of the things I loved was I would say something that was maybe like 10 words, and then it would take 15 minutes. I think Italian is a much more descriptive language, because I would say something, it would take a lot longer. I remembered I was trying to teach story structure by talking about American sitcoms, and like the students had never heard of The Honeymooners, they never heard of I Love Lucy, but they all knew Everybody Loves Raymond, because it's about an Italian American family. I really enjoyed it. I was treated very nicely. The students were enthusiastic. What I found, what I found very interesting was how close World War II still seemed in Italy. I mean, luckily, we didn't fight it in America. It was all fought in Europe and Asia. But so many things in Milan, I realized if something was not like 600 years old, it was new, and it was new because it had been bombed during the war. I mean, just that. And a lot of the stories that the students wrote were kind of almost had, even though they were the grandchildren or great grandchildren of people who had lived through the war, there was still, I got a great sense of loss and bereavement and danger from what seemed to be just kind of comfortable middle class kids, but the stories were all about that everything could go away. It was kind of fascinating, and of course the food. Needless to say, every meal, each meal was better than the next. So it was very. I really loved it, and anybody wants to invite me over again to teach once this is all over, let me know.
We will let you know.
Thank you.
Negli anni 90 sei stato lo scrittore della serie Darkhawk, un personaggio molto seguito in Italia, questo antieroe. Puoi parlarci di quel periodo, per favore?
That was a period, that was the biggest boom period in modern comics. Marvel and DC and the independents, and of course Image Comics started. There was a great hunger for comics of all kinds, especially superhero comics. A lot of it had to do with it being a collector's market and people, buying multiple copies, thinking it would be an investment for the future. But I think there were a lot of people who were actually reading them. So Darkhawk was a character that created by Tom DeFalco and Mike Manley, but I wrote, every issue and all the annuals. So I wrote all 50 issues. It was supposed to be Spider-Man for the 1990s. So a character who literally went to Peter Parker's high school and lived in the borough of Queens in New York, where Peter had lived, and so it was an attempt to kind of give that generation. Even then, Spider-Man was 30 years old. So the idea was to give that generation its own Spider-Man kind of character, a teenager faced with great power and great responsibility. And it was just this boom period. I mean, the comic lasted 4 years, but Marvel at that point, everything we did sold. Things were, there were like a million. I think at one point we were putting out like 130 comics a month. The Spider-Man line, which I was the group editor running at that point, had 17 or 18 monthly titles relating to Spider-Man. It was an incredible, exhilarating period, and it was definitely a gold rush kind of thing. And then, it was that period right before the big decline in sales, when there were various business decisions made by Marvel, especially that I think that more than anything to do with the quality or lack thereof of the books or the comics, really put a harpoon in the market, which we're still recovering from today. But it was a very exciting time. And if there are any Darkhawk fans, keep your ears open. There may be some Darkhawk news soon that you'll find of interest.
Ricordiamo a tutti gli ascoltatori che il libro A Marvelous Life, The Amazing Story of Stan Lee è in vendita anche in Italia. È stato pubblicato nel 2020, se non sbaglio, a marzo, quindi potete acquistarlo. Danny, noi ti ringraziamo da parte di Comics Reporter e Fumettomania. Per oggi è tutto, grazie e alla prossima, ciao!
Thank you, ciao. And by the way, there's an audio book. If you want to hear it in English, there's an audio book read by me.
Oh, wow.
How could you not want to hear 14 hours of this?
Okay, perfect.
Did he say anything else that I needed to hear?
No, he just wanted asking me for you to show the book, but you already did it.
I'll show it again.
Okay.
And it's in Italian and the audio book. So
Okay, perfect.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Ready.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you.
Ciao,
Ciao,
grazie.
grazie.
Thank you, Filippo.